Your co-host Blake Ruffino.
You were muted. You were muted.
Was I really?
Yep. For the first time ever. You tripped up. That's a rare one. Should I do the open?
No. It is a very rare one.
I'm just kidding.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone. Before we get anything,
Yes.
Elks comes up and says, remember to ask my super chat. Here's the problem, Elks. After long hours of searching, we could not find your super chat from last night.
It was arduous. It was a tough task. We couldn't find it.
Send us the question that you had from last night.
Yes,
because
we did remember.
We will read it now.
We did remember. We just couldn't find the question, so that we will get to it.
We will get to it. He can ask again. Please ask again. All right, Joe. We got lots to get into. Joe, Jim Harbaugh gets a show cause. Our thoughts on that. Look, man, I've seen some very wild takes in my day. This Michigan one is blowing my mind. I'm being dead honest. I'm just being dead honest. But
well, okay, wait. You're talking about the recent the show cause stuff. Why are you like so blown away by it? Because I feel like it doesn't matter.
Because I feel like the parts of our media corps are running out there saying, okay, well, now Michigan has served their penalty. No, they have not. Harbaugh is not the only one that's involved in this. Stop. Regardless, Harbaugh is not the only one involved in all of this.
Wait, the show cause was related to recruiting violations. It wasn't the sign stealing stuff.
Correct. However, that's not true. Because I've also heard people saying that it's about the 2020 recruiting things. Joe, they hit him with a lack of institutional control. At the very end of the sentence, the NCAA came out and said a lack of institutional control and unethical. That is when you hit somebody, they can't hit him any harder.
Okay, right. I mean, it's a year suspension and a 4-year show cause. So yes, it is absolutely
okay.
The hardest penalty that can be delivered.
So the wording of the NCAA's ruling today is they're all but admitting a lack of institutional control. I will remind everybody, to have what happened today to Harbaugh, you have to have two instances. They can't hit you with a lack of institutional control without two completely separate incidents. That's what he got hit with today. Oh, yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. But it was still stemming from the recruiting violations. There's still more to be uncovered once the NOA is dropped. And then eventually it's a whole process to determine what else comes from this. But here's the way. Forget this for a second. None of this matters, though. Because he's never going to go back to college coaching.
Okay. Whatever.
They're just trying to make it seem like that they're being strict and difficult about it when they know he's not coming back.
Hold on. I think the NCAA gave you a prequel to what their ruling on Michigan's going to be. That was going to be my point.
I disagree on that. I think that I know that we're kind of already jumping into the topic.
Well, let's get to it.
I disagree on that is a precursor for what the punishments are going to be. I think that they're trying to deliver the most aggressive blow to Harbaugh to say that, look, we were not allowing anyone to skate by easy here. Look at what we just delivered to Harbaugh, knowing that it's not going to have any real consequence for the University of Michigan. They still will probably suspend and fine them. I bet Sherrone Moore does get suspended.
No. However, when a school, and this is as evident as 2021, when schools get hit with lack of institutional control, LSU, you get postseason bans. If your coach or anybody inside your administration gets hit with lack of institutional control, there's an automatic postseason ban, Joe.
He's not there anymore, though. I don't think that lack of institutional control is going to be coming down.
Tell Ohio State, tell LSU that for when they got hit with it of a postseason ban. Like, I get that everybody just wants to concede the fact that other schools have dealt with similar shit and have got hit with tougher shit, and everybody just wants this Michigan shit to go by. You cannot. I don't give a shit what you tell me, you cannot, as of 2021, come down on somebody and then not 2 years later not do the same shit for Michigan, Joe.
They're going to obviously they're obviously going to deliver a penalty to Michigan. That's obviously coming.
Y'all stop with this. Oh, let's give them a little bit of a fine shit. No, hit them like you hit everybody else with a lack of.
Okay, but the NCAA doesn't have the same level of control that they used to, and they also don't handle these things as aggressively as they used to.
What's Michigan going to do?
They're going to pay the fine that gets delivered to them. The coach that they're trying to deliver a penalty to is no longer there.
If the NCAA rules something to Michigan the way that they see fit, and Michigan doesn't agree with it, what are they going to do? Yeah, please go ahead and leave the Big Ten, please.
They're not going to. They're not going to leave the Big Ten.
Okay, well then, what are they going to do? Everybody's like, well, the NCAA.
They obviously have to comply with whatever's given to them. But again, I'm going to keep saying this: that penalty does not matter. It doesn't mean anything. And Mars, who's his attorney, made a really good point. Is it's like, okay, this means nothing. He's focused on winning a national champion or a Super Bowl.
Of course.
Also, Goodell is not going to suspend him. I know this happened with Tressel, but that was a ridiculous decision made by the NFL. Goodell knows that he can't do that right now.
Harbaugh got out. Harbaugh told you what was happening when he left. Joe, me and you, when he went to the Chargers, we had a segment. We don't talk about the NFL on the show. We did one time, okay? Only one time we've talked about the NFL at great length on this show. It was about him. The writing was on the wall. Joe, I mean, the writing was all over the wall. And you know what? He also was probably thinking about bailing on this recruiting thing.
That enough was part of.
He's telling you what was happening the whole time.
He didn't care. He didn't care. He was
louder than words.
He was just doing whatever. He didn't care at that point. He was just trying to win a national title. And also, to answer, I don't understand, Alex. So you're just like misremembering that. It was brought up on the broadcast. There were stories that were reported on it. I mean, like I have an article right here, if it would load, written by Pat Forty, who I work with at Yahoo, and it's titled "Follow the Signs: How Clemson Football Mastered the Totally Legal Art of Stealing of Sign Stealing."
Not trying to be that guy. However, the last time Pat Forty talked about an investigation that was going on.
You didn't read the article. Don't do this. You didn't read this article. We don't know what anecdotes or information is in this article.
But to Elks's point, the last time Pat Forty reported on a case like this, he was wrong.
Elks, I'm going to ignore that. But Elks, it says legal because that's my whole fucking point, is that sign stealing is something that is accepted across college football.
It's not about the sign stealing. How do y'all not get that? Joe, explain to me if they have a right defense.
I understand that. I understand that.
It's not this. It's not even in the same stratosphere. If we could, for whatever reason, forget about Brent Venables for a minute. Let's just assume that everybody else sign steals. They do. Okay? Joe, not to this magnitude. Because if everybody could send coaches or would send coaches to other games to steal signals, they'd all be doing it.
I don't know. I disagree with that. I think that nobody took the time and the effort and the deliberate nature to coordinate something like this.
You mean to tell me that if it was legal for you to go to opposing teams' games and start stealing signs, that other schools like Notre Dame, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State wouldn't do it if there wasn't a rule?
Don't think anybody considered doing it at this strategic and deep of a level. That's what it was. They were just doing it better than everybody else was.
There's levels to cheating, right? Basically, it's like when you have a girlfriend or a wife and you feel like, well, baby, she just, gave me a hand job. Is that like a level for you, Joe? Or is cheating?
How is it? How different is it really? The action is sign stealing. The acquiring of it is where it gets brought up of being legal or not legal. That's where this whole argument stems from. My whole counter to this is it's stupid that part of it is considered illegal. It shouldn't be something that was accepted. And the biggest thing that I haven't brought up this whole past week is that decades ago, they should have put radios in helmets. None of this would have been an issue if that was something that was implemented in the
They
game. It
had
was
radios
archaic in
and
the first
helmets when
place.
Spygate happened. Do you really?
That was completely different. He stole practice footage.
Okay.
Practice footage.
But it was still illegal. Like at some point, Joe, this is how it comes off. Can I tell you how you and some of the other people in the national media are coming off? And then we got to get to, because we do have Big Ten power rankings that we will do tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you how it feels like it's coming off. All right, everybody's doing it. So hit him with a little something, hit him with a fine, and maybe Sharon Moore gets a suspension, maybe a little bit, but then we go amongst our merry way.
Okay, the inverse of that. The inverse of that is how.
Can I get 1 point in? However, this is the second offense that they had in 4 years that was deemed level 1. Do you understand what I just said?
Yes, I understand that they've been accused of two things. Buying a kid a hamburger is so goddamn egregious.
Joe,
this is my problem with it. Everybody who's against them, and I have no reason to support Michigan.
You couldn't have kids on campus during COVID. You couldn't. That's what he got hit with today.
This is my whole problem with the whole thing, is that every simple, stupid, little, small action that they did is being painted like they killed somebody.
Hold on.
We don't talk about in the same level of gravity with Georgia, and the severity of the outcome of their actions is far worse.
Because kids aren't, Joe, there's not recruiting violations, they're traffic infractions.
Someone died. People died at Georgia, and then kids keep doing the same thing that led to a death.
Notre Dame fans like to let me know this. Notre Dame had a kid die at practice.
And they stopped sending kids up on that lift, I would assume. That has nothing to do with this. Why I have a problem is we're acting like what they're...
Hold on. Let me give you a checkmate really quickly. You know who else had kids on campus during COVID?
Arizona State.
What did they get hit with?
That was a far more complex operation. They weren't they coordinating visits through like Jane Daniels' mom or something like that?
No, she was doing NIL before NIL. It wasn't recruiting like that. No. All right, I'll give you another one. LSU got a postseason ban, and got like 10 scholarship reductions for 2 years, and for the same penalty.
But what was it for? What did they do?
For having kids on campus, and James Craig, the offensive line coach, meeting with the Callaway kid, or Tristan Lee, that plays left tackle for Clemson. By the way, it was found out in federal court or whatever, because James Craig sued, that legitimately the kid showed up at his house and they still hit him for it. You have 2 level 1 violations on them, and I'm supposed to sit here and say, you know what? Hit them with a little fine. Even though, Joe, you have 2 schools that a year ago got popped for the same shit.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't be penalized, and I'm not saying that the only punishment that is fair is a little bit of little fine. That's not what I'm saying. I think a postseason ban and vacating any wins is far too aggressive. I think a full season suspension for Sharon Moore is far too aggressive. All I'm trying to explain here is that there is no middle ground for reaction to the situation. It's the reason why you and I are screaming at each other about this.
Joe,
because
the middle ground, the middle ground was when you penalized Arizona State and LSU for the same infractions. And the only thing that they had was the COVID recruiting rules.
What did you say that their penalty was?
They had, you talking about LSU?
Yeah, what was the penalty for what they did?
A 1 year postseason ban, and they had 10 scholarship reductions for 2 years. Oh, by the way, during the middle of the summer, they couldn't recruit for 2 weeks.
Wait, LSU was given a postseason ban?
Yes.
What season did they have the postseason ban?
The COVID, or either the COVID, the year after COVID, the 2021 ban. Or either 2020 or 2021.
Why am I misremembering this? I remember the Arizona State stuff. Why am I misremembering this? Was this not related to the whole...
Because Orgeron was in the bed with big titty blondes and nobody gave a shit because they were pointing and laughing at him. Meanwhile, the university was burning.
But is this connected to the fake job thing that happened?
That was also added into it. So
Okay, so it sounds a little bit more Okay, now I know what we're talking about.
But they still got hit with a level 1 violation.
But it sounds like there's a lot more layers to this than just having a kid on.
Yes,
Michigan didn't host a ton of recruits. I believe it was.
I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Again, go to Arizona State.
Arizona State's was far more deliberate.
10 kids, Joe. 10.
That's a large group.
No, it's not. Do you know how big recruiting weekends are? Joe, there's literally hundreds of kids there every weekend.
For when you're not supposed to have recruits on campus, having 10 kids on campus is a pretty large group.
Oh, my God. All right. We got to talk about our Big Ten power rankings. We'll do that here tonight. And C.J. Baxter, unfortunately, Joe, the really good Texas running back has torn his, ACL or PCL, but he's done for the year or something.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Severe knee injury. He's done for the year.
Okay, and so we'll talk about that as well here. So a lot of Big Ten that we'll be talking on the show, but then we'll get down to the to Texas to the SEC.
We have 2 super chats. Should we hit them before?
Okay, yeah, let's get to them. Alex with a $5 super chat says, "I feel like Joe reads Michigan's message boards. Here's Joe's argument: it's a quote unquote nothing burger. Everybody's quote unquote no hammer, just a fine."
Yeah, I mean, I don't care that I sound like Again, I'm not a Michigan fan. I am the complete opposite.
Everybody knows. By the way, nice hat.
Oh, I forgot to change. I'll change it during the break. I forgot to change hats. I'm not a Michigan supporter. I still stand by this fact that we can't act like what they did was some cardinal sin that is, deserving of the death penalty. That's the way that some of the reactions are for what they did. They just took what was illegal, what was allowed, and took it a step further that shouldn't have been allowed. We don't need to rehash that. We have another comment.
I'm very tempted. I was very tempted. Ducks for Life with a $4.99 super chat says, "Starting my night off of work with a good Blake and Joe show. #SCO Ducks." Man, I really appreciate that, Ducks for Life. Yeah. You're going to be pissed off at me and Joe in about 5 minutes. So, nevertheless, do us a favor, hit the like and share wherever you're watching us from. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Hit that share button. Joe, let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. We'll be right back. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. All right. By the way, Joe, I know something that can cheer you up. Our New York Yankees have the first place record in Major League Baseball.
I'm not a Yankees fan. How many
times?
Well,
then why are you wearing their hat on your other shows?
Because I have a Yankees hat. That's literally it. I also have a Tampa Bay Rays hat. So I just like hats.
Tampa Bay Rays, you mean Tampa Bay Bucks?
No, there's a Rays hat.
No, that's a Bucks hat.
No,
I thought you were talking about the creamsicle one. What's your infatuation with Tampa?
I bought the Rays hat because I just like the Rays throwback logo, and then I bought that one.
It has no affiliation. It's just got to do with color.
I bought the creamsicle one because when you made me buy this stupid hat, I wanted to make it the
most other obnoxious hat you think you could find.
It was on sale. It was like $10. It was like 70% off, so I bought it. It was a cool hat.
I feel you. Joe, we have been doing over the last couple of days our power rankings, picking our conference winners. And, I felt like we had more of these, but actually we only have 2 more, starting with one tonight in the Big Ten, with now it being the P4. Joe, we get to our Big Ten power rankings, and we're going to pick our conference champion here tonight. And I look at the Big Ten and say, man, I feel like they're more top-heavy than I ever remember them being. And I think that like when I put it on paper the other night, I'm like, oh my God. Oh, like they're top heavy because, dude, literally 9 through 17, 9 through 18, whatever. Okay, go right on ahead. Right on ahead.
I don't know, you're going to be shocked by this. I actually disagree with you on that because
of course you do.
It's typically a 2-man race, and now I think that
it's a 4-man race now.
There's 4 viable options outside of the teams that I think we believe are the top 2 favorites. The middle of the pack, I don't think has ever been this talented. Like I look at
fair.
You could go from USC all the way down to Rutgers, and I think that you could find like 6 just competitive teams. I don't disagree with you though. I think that in the sense that the bottom half of this conference is terrible. Like there are some really bad teams.
Right.
Really bad teams.
So let's look at them here. Joe, let's go from 10 through 18 here. I'll start off. I have Rutgers, our people in New Jersey, the Fighting Italians. Illinois at 11, Maryland at 12, UCLA, which you're going to hate, at 13, Northwestern at 14, Indiana 15, Michigan State at 16, Minnesota 17, Purdue 18. Joe, what is your 10 through 18?
Number 10, I've got Washington, 11, Michigan State, 12, Maryland, 13, Minnesota, 14, Purdue, 15, Illinois, 16, Northwestern, 17, Indiana, and then 18, UCLA. So like the one stopping point I already had when I was telling you in pre-production, and this is such a, like, who cares? But UCLA is going to suck. UCLA is not going to be a good team this year. They're the lowest in returning production. They're just not bringing anything back that excites me, mostly because of the fact that when Chip Kelly left, it was so late in the process, it just screwed their ability to reload and figure out the direction that they were going. And I see a barren team with a new head coach who I think that Deshaun Foster could be fine and figure things out. But it's going to be tough sledding for this first year, the way that I think all these other teams are built. But more importantly, I don't think that UCLA is built to, one, deal with all of the travel that they're going to go through, and to also have to battle things out in the trenches with some of these teams on their schedule.
Joe, I got to be a little real with you, because earlier, about a month and a half ago, I did a deep dive on them because they were LSU's, like, in LSU schedule, whatever. I don't necessarily disagree with you. However, I do think that they might have a little bit of a decent running game potentially. And I don't know if that doesn't fit the Big Ten. But I think the thing for me is, Joe, I look at, like, Northwestern. Are you sure? Like, Indiana, are you sure? Michigan State, Joe, Michigan State, well, you want to talk about depleted. Minnesota, I don't row the boat. And then I know you're mad at me about Purdue. I just don't know if they can't beat all those teams, Joe.
I don't think that all of those teams have more premier talent at key positions. Like Michigan State, Aiden Childs.
Have you ever seen Aiden Childs throw a pass? Meaningful pass?
He hasn't played yet, but I at least have a good athlete and a highly recruited kid that's well regarded in just national recruiting circles in general, that he could have a really strong year. I'm blanking on there's one linebacker that they have that I really, really like. They've got some players on that team that are at least competitive, which is why I think that Jonathan Smith can at least have them, I don't know, like 5-7, not totally bottoming out. The one thing I really disagree with you on is I think that Ryan Walters in year 2, I know that they lost Scourton and Deion Burks, but Dylan Thieneman comes back, who was one of the best safeties in the country last year. He was on my top DB list. He is an unbelievably gifted player as a true sophomore. I think that he is the epitome of what makes a Ryan Walters coach team and a Ryan Walters coach defense so competitive and good. They're not going to be, 8-4, but I wouldn't be shocked if they finish 6-6, just because they're a tough out for every team that they go against.
Can I tell you my philosophy on Purdue?
You just hate Drew. Oh no, you love Drew Brees. So that
I love
make sense.
Drew Brees. I think they're going to suck. I think offensively that they're going to really suck.
They're bringing back Hudson Card. They're bringing back their quarterback. It's not like they're starting over.
I understand that.
He's serviceable. He's better than anything that they have at UCLA, at Northwestern, at Minnesota. Those are all unresolved situations.
If you want to talk about a school I'm pissed off at you by Joe, remember what happened in the beginning of around this time last year at Northwestern? Pat Fitzgerald got canned. And Joe, Northwestern came with some fight.
They also, I understand that they came out swinging despite all of the adversity that they were facing, but they're also one of the lower teams in returning production in the Big Ten. Some of the lower ones, Washington was one of the lowest, which makes sense.
You got them at 10.
I have Northwestern at 10 or I have Washington?
Washington.
Yeah, wait, why are you so high on Washington?
Because I saw a coach take a quarterback with talent last year in Arizona and start winning football games.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I cut you off.
I looked at them the other day in reference to what they thought that they had at wide receiver. I know that they have a lot to replace there. Joe, they got some production coming back at receiver. I think they're going to be much better defensively. I think you're so down on Will Rogers. I really do.
I'm not down on Will Rogers.
Well, then if you're not, then Joe, I mean, he's going to throw them into wins.
I look more closely at. I wish I could freaking.
I mean, we forget that Will Rogers was on the Mississippi State team with Mike Leach that went 9-4. Like, Joe, do you not forget that? Joe,
yeah, but how much does that have to do with?
Because you forget how good Mississippi State. Joe, if you had, let's look at one of these teams in the Big Ten. Joe, if you had a situation where Michigan State, under a coach that's been premier somewhere else at another school and is coming in, Mike Leach almost had a 10-win season in the SEC if it wouldn't be for that bowl loss. So I'm getting to a point where I'm like, I feel like everybody forgets about what Will Rogers did at Mississippi State.
Yeah, but do we also remember how shaky and inconsistent he was after working with Mike Leach? Like, it's not just going to be a plug and play.
You cannot throw last year on him. Joe, they played LSU 1 week. They came out in 12 personnel trying to pound the football.
Yeah, I know.
The next week they went to the full air raid. What are we even discussing with here?
Yeah, but he's shuffling into multiple different offenses. I just don't think it's going to be like hit the ground running. But the more important part here is Jed Fish is a great coach, but he's a builder. He is a slow builder. They were 1-11, 5-7, and then 10-3. Their roster got really aggressively depleted, and they're really lacking depth. Could they be competitive? Absolutely. I think that's why they fit at 10. 7-5.
Will Rogers is going to get them over eight games in a win. They're winning more than 8 games.
I don't know why you're so Josh, I used to come into
7 games.
I used to come into the office 2 years ago before we started doing this show. Josh used to come in before that college season and tell me that Will Rogers was going to win the Heisman. And I used to tell him, Will Rogers isn't as good as he thinks he is.
Do you really think that's what I'm saying here?
I know that's not what you're saying, but I'm saying for some reason you think he's so good that he's
30. He's a top 30, top 25 quarterback in college football right now.
He's top 50. I'd say
he's
top
not
50.
Top 50. He is not top 50.
He's fine, but more importantly,
Joe, you can't put 25 other quarterbacks that are more experienced and have shown better things than he has.
He is not the type of a quarterback that is going to raise the floor of everything around him.
You mean like Mississippi State almost getting to 10 wins? That's not raising the floor?
What does he physically do that changes the game? What does he physically do?
What did Stetson Bennett physically do?
He was on one of the greatest rosters of all time.
No.
This was my whole argument.
Could Stetson Bennett have led Mississippi State to a 10-win season?
Probably.
So you aren't that down on Stetson Bennett like you used to say so much.
No, that's not. You're pulling the wrong takeaway here. The whole takeaway is that game managers like these guys, you throw them into this Washington situation with lacking depth.
He's not a game manager. Stop.
Yes, he is. What has he done
when he threw for over 4,000 yards?
He was playing in an air raid.
I don't give a
air raid.
What he was.
Case Keenum says hello. What?
Case Keenum's still in the league
as a backup.
I don't give a shit.
Stats don't
And
mean
why do we
everything.
have to go? Why do we have to go to the league when we're talking about what they've done in college?
No. Because I'm talking about Case Keenum was at Houston, but like he just threw up a bunch of stats. Same thing with who's the goofball who's the Boise State the Eagles
the
offensive
Hawaii
coordinator.
Brian Henson.
No. The Eagles offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. Like these guys throw up great stats, but like why am I supposed to just
put
assume
up stats like that?
Yes, he did.
No, he did not. He didn't throw for like 4,500 yards and like 40, 50 touchdowns.
Oh, just wait. Hold on 1 second. Where did I put my mouse?
No, he did not. He would be like 36-8. 36 touchdowns, eight picks.
He had
Go right on ahead. I told you.
His last year was 43 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and he threw for 3,800 passing yards.
What about every single other year after besides that?
That was his last year. Well,
what about every year that he started?
39-3, and then 35-6.
I told you. He didn't put up.
All right. We're not. This is a Big Ten. This is a Big Ten preview. We're not.
I'm higher on Will Rogers than you are. There, I said it. Anyway,
it's just a weird guy to put all your hope in. But okay, go ahead.
Both of us have Nebraska, Joe, at number 9. You have Rutgers a little bit higher than I do, not too terribly much. But you have Wisconsin at 7, and I have them at 7. So let's go through those 3 because we have a lot of similarities there.
Rutgers, I'm betting a lot on Kyle Monangai. I think that the run game that they're going to bring back is going to be better than last year. I know that they're losing a little bit of production because they're starting over from scratch at quarterback, and that McManus kid that they're bringing in from Minnesota, like I need to kind of see it before I determine if he's capable of being any better than what they had last year. But Schiano is a great coach. They're just a really fundamentally sound team. Probably not going to put up a lot of points, but I'm putting my faith in Schiano to help this team take another step forward. Wisconsin, though, I've said this before, their offensive line is unbelievably good. Their defensive line is extremely underrated. They're going to regain that physical presence that we're used to seeing. They're going to punch a lot of teams in the mouth. I don't think they're in that upper category just yet to compete with Penn State, to compete with Michigan, and to be in the Big Ten championship conversation like they were not too long ago. But they're going to run the ball really freaking well. I think Jes Malusi could have a very, very productive season.
I disagree with you on Wisconsin a little on their I think that they have multiple tackles that are trying to play guard. And when you let the worst defensive line statistically in the league,
Riley Mahlman's 6'8" and Jack Nelson's 6'7". They're tackles. They're not guards.
No, but look at the tackles that they put in at guard last year. They moved 2 tackles. They moved them into guard. I'm telling you, I had a whole segment on this. Okay. Regardless, I saw the worst defensive line in the SEC last year go up against them and have 4 sacks. Spare me. I don't know about them. I'm going to question you on that. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see. Have you seen that news out there about Wisconsin and Tyler Van Dyke?
What was it? There was the stupid thing that was tweeted that, he's back in his rhythm. He had 4 straight completions. Man, are you freaking kidding me? That's what you're talking about, right?
Okay. I don't know what to make of that. You know, the Wisconsin people feel like he's really good right now. I can't bring myself there. I do find it highly interesting, though. Phil Longo has done some interesting things with quarterbacks. And look, I will admit, like when an offensive play caller that has a lot of success brings in a guy that a lot of us question, it does make my antennas go up, right? Like it always does, in the sense of, what does he see in that kid that I don't? And maybe
he was the only viable option that wanted to go there.
No, I don't believe for Phil Longo. I don't believe that. I don't believe for him. They could have gone and gotten any other quarterback in the country. Joe, they could have. They could have looked at any other. Joe, it's Phil Longo. We're talking about a guy that's had multiple really good offenses for quarterbacks.
I don't think anyone's breaking down the door to go play at Wisconsin offensively right now, or at quarterback rather. Tyler Van Dyke, I think, was even with the expectation of what they could have gotten. A former quality. They're trying to do a reverse Graham Mertz. They're trying to do a reverse Graham Mertz where you bring in a new kid.
You know what would be the funniest shit of all time?
Uh-huh.
If Florida got the Wisconsin quarterback who started playing really well, and then Wisconsin's able to turn around Tyler Van Dyke, another – not Florida, but in Miami.
Florida.
Yeah, from Florida quarterback. That would be one of the more ironic things that you would see.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It'd be hilarious.
Why you love the sport. Joe, we got Nebraska right there, the same at 9. Your thoughts on the Big Red coming in the top 10 in year 2 under Matt Rule?
Yeah, one thing I kind of came back on, there was this one year, I'm forgetting the year, where Temple played Notre Dame, and Temple was like the 25th ranked team in the country, and they hosted Notre Dame. Notre Dame played them way closer than they should have. But it just reminded me, if you give Matt Rule a couple of years, he is going to outperform a team's expectations. He's going to get more out of a team than everybody assumes. I don't believe that Nebraska will be 10-2. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that Matt Rule is just one of these great galvanizing leaders. You've got this really fun, exciting young quarterback in Dylan Raiola, who's deemed to be one of the most ready-to-play true freshmen that we've seen in a very long time. It's not a bad roster. It's not a great one, but I think that they're capable of playing the Big Ten style of football that they need to play with a survivable schedule to go 7-5 and finish right at that 9 spot.
The only thing that worries me about putting him in the top 10 in the Big Ten is that Dylan Raiola is a freshman. And I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what you say. I don't give a shit. That kid is going to make mistakes, and I will tell people if he went out there next year and threw 25 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, or 20 touchdowns and 15 interceptions, it's not going to bother me in what I think of the kid. Was he making right decisions? Is he just a freshman? Like, you got to let guys grow here. As much as Dylan Raiola brings them up for me right now, he also can bring them down for me in any of these lists, because I'm like, look, man, you're rolling out there potentially with a freshman starting quarterback in the Big Ten. It's not easy. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that the kid can really play. And so for that, I'm going to put them in my top 10 here. Joe, we have Wisconsin, or we did Wisconsin. We have USC, Iowa, Penn State, Michigan, 3 through 6. I pretty much have the same thing that you do. We've already talked about Washington, but we mix them up.
That's so high at 6. God, sorry. Continue. We're not going backwards.
I am putting all my faith in Will Rogers.
It's just such a random guy to you. You did this last show. SEC quarterback. We're all in. You did it with KJ Jefferson. Oh, he played in the SEC, so we're all in. I'm not wrong. Maybe I don't get it.
It's not my fault that those quarterbacks went there.
You just buy in on these guys, though, when they're not as good as I think that.
Joe, he threw for 4,500 touchdowns and almost led Ole Miss to a 10-win season.
Played Mississippi State. He played. Okay, we're not doing it. We're done. We already talked about it.
Name a wide. Can you just do one? Can you answer one trivia question for me? Can you name one wide receiver at Mississippi State?
No, because I don't memorize Mississippi State depth charts.
Then be quiet. All right. I don't even know where to start here. You know what? Let's start at USC. So you have USC coming in at number 6 here. I have them at number 5. So tit for tat. What do we think of USC?
I'm not buying the Miller Moss buzz. Not that I don't think he couldn't be good, and not that Lincoln Riley couldn't unlock something from him, but to put that much faith into a guy after one bowl game to put him into the top 5 in the conference just feels a little bit aggressive. I love D'Anton Lynn. I've said that a million times this offseason. It pains me as a Notre Dame fan to know that D'Anton Lynn is going to improve that defense. But it's going to take more than one offseason to undo the damage that Alex Grinch did. We're not just talking about poor scheme on the field. His approach was force turnovers, forget tackling. That shit, not emphasizing tackling in the Big 12 or in the Big 10 rather. That is going to take more than an offseason to coach out of your players. Because what he had at UCLA was downhill, aggressive, punch you in the mouth, pressure coming from your front seven, all that stuff. It's going to take a bit before they get into the proper rhythm.
Okay. Hot take. You ready? If you got them at 6, Joe, then you're having them around 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then that's fair then. If that happens, that means that their defense stood up big time.
Yeah, I'm implying that they'd improve.
Well, I don't know. Joe, you're talking about if they go 9-3 with the schedule that USC has, they're going to have to be in the mid-50s. Like, they're going to have to take a massive leap. Now, with that being said, hot take, you ready? I think they are. I personally, because of other stuff and because, LSU playing them week 1, I know I've said I never say them this much on the show. I swear to God. I went back and watched a lot of them at the end of the year last year defensively. Dude, do you know how good at times athletically they were defensively? Yeah. Like, they have guys, right? Mm-hmm. Scheme was so bad. But, dude, even special teams, man, they blocked 3 kicks or 3 punts in the last 3 games that they played. So I'm like, okay, well, look, they do have some good coaches on that staff. Joe, 3 punts in 3 weeks, right? Like, I mean, that's not something that you see often, or from a guy who doesn't care about defense and special teams. How is that game in week 1 going to go off? You got to set a tone. And as much as LSU people think that they need it because they underperformed last year, so does USC. That sets the barometer for them. Joe, I think they can get to 9 wins. That's about where I see them at, 8, 9 wins. So with that being said, I don't think that that's fairly off. I just think that they are going to take a much bigger leap, maybe, because they'll have to be at 9-3 in that conference.
Yeah, and again, I'm implying that they're going to improve, but my point is that for them to compete in the Big Ten on a week-to-week basis with the top teams in the conference, to be able to win those games, they're going to need to be top 20. They're going to need to be one of the better defenses. More importantly, yes, they do. In the Big Ten,
that means that offensively they stink.
No, that's wait. That's not what I said. I'm saying to be better than 9-3, to go back to be 10-2, 11-1 in the upper conversation. But to accomplish being 9-3 is more than doable. To go from where they were to 50th, they have the athletes. Barry Alexander is a phenomenal athlete. Was he coached really poorly, and did he have a bad motor? Yes. Did he take plays off? Yes. Do you now have a defensive line-minded defensive coordinator who's going to help him improve? 1,000%. So 9-3, I think, is totally realistic. And it's the world we live in where the 6th team in a conference can be 9-3.
Well, it's been the SEC for the last 20 years. So we did Wisconsin, we did Washington, we did USC. You have Michigan at 4 here. I have Penn State at 4. Or no, you have, Michigan at 3, Penn State at 4. I have Michigan at 4, Penn State at 3. Let's get to those two very quickly, whoever you want to start off with.
Yeah, that should be illegal. I mean, we're talking about one of the most gifted defenses in the country. Understandably, they did put out some guys into the NFL, but Mason Graham, Will Johnson, Kenneth Grant, that is an insane just grouping of 3 guys that all could potentially go in the first round. Penn State put out all of their top players. Abdul Carter coming back is going to be phenomenal. Kevin Winston Jr. at safety is going to be a great player. I'm concerned at what's stepping up for them at offensive line after the guys that they put into the NFL. I still have no idea what they have at receiver. I like what they've got going on at tight end and at running back. But defensively, they're far more depleted than people want to consider. 3 corners went on to the NFL. Johnny Dixon, Kalen King, and Daquan Hardy. There is so much that's being replaced, not to mention Manny Diaz, who was the orchestrator of all this, is now gone. I have to really bang the table on this one that I think that Michigan has an unbelievable athlete in Alex Orji, and even if he stinks as a quarterback, is going to be able to win them enough football games and be better than Penn State by enough of a margin because of the volume of guys that they're replacing defensively.
So basically, can I tell you what I just heard? I'm picking Alex Orji over Drew Aller.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I think that Drew Aller is going to have probably a better year than Alex Orji. But I am not.
Okay, then why is Penn State below him again? Because if he has a better year with that running game, then what? Joe, they might have one of the sneakiest backfields in the country.
Yes, they have a really good. Again, they just put out their starting center and their left tackle to the NFL.
Okay, and what did Michigan lose on the offensive line?
They did lose their whole offensive line.
Oh, okay. So again, you're talking about a brand new offensive line with a brand new quarterback against Joe. Are we acting like Penn State doesn't have pieces? Like, I feel like you're trying to separate them like there's a massive gap here.
No, I'm just trying to indicate that one is more competitive than the other.
Okay. Both of them are potentially, from what we're saying, going to be borderline playoff teams, right? Like, that's where we both have them.
I don't think they get in, though.
You only think two teams from the really? Two teams from the Big Ten are only getting in?
None of these teams have enough ranked opponents on their schedules.
Oh, so they play a weak schedules. The Big Ten's the conference of weak schedules.
If Penn State goes 10-2, and saying Notre Dame's also 10-2, there's going to be a bunch of other 10-2 teams that are going to be arguing to go.
Notre Dame's schedule is ass too.
Well, that's my whole point.
Right. Pick what schedule was less ass. That's the conversation that we would be having. Listen, there's new offensive scheme in Penn State. Okay, I am going to lean on the fact that gets them done with a very traitsy quarterback. I'm having your take. I am not backing off my Drew Aller take right now. Okay, I think that gets them the 3. For me, okay, I am doing what I asked you that I thought that you were doing, is the fact that I am taking Drew. When I think so many things are equal, I am going to take Drew Aller over Alex Orji. Joe, here's number 2. National championship layoffs are a big deal. And I don't think people fully grasp how hard it is to get back to that mountaintop every single year. You have an entire coaching staff that is gone, an entire staff damn near that is gone at Michigan with all of the things that happened this offseason. You want to talk about there being a lot of replacements on the field for Penn State. Yes, Manny Diaz did leave, okay, for Penn State to Duke. But, Joe, there's more to replace at Michigan than it is Penn State. And I do think yes, there is.
I don't agree with that. I think there's the same level of departure and replacement
let me ask you a question. If a head coach, multiple first-round picks, leave along with an entire defensive staff, what would you say about that team when you're just talking staff per staff?
Right. If we're comparing Penn
Wink
State.
Martindale has not been in college football in a minute.
Defensive court, okay, but I'm not worried about Wink Martindale having a slow acclimation period to college football. It's not like a pro style. I think a defensive coordinator has a much easier time transitioning than an offensive coordinator does. But again, like, we're talking about a team that's losing an edge rusher and multiple defensive backs and multiple offensive linemen. And the more important part here is that Penn State significantly underwhelmed on a pretty consistent basis last year.
Yeah, fair. I think they're going to take the next step. I don't disagree that they did. I'm just thinking that they will. All right, let's get to our 1 and 2 here. Joe, we both have Ohio State winning the Big Ten. We both have Oregon facing off against them in the, I guess, Big Ten title. Oh my God, Big Ten title game. So we're taking Ohio State to win the Big Ten this year. Joe, go ahead. What do you think of? Why do you have them winning the conference?
Yeah, I've been repeating this over and over again over the past couple of weeks on every single guest spot that I've done. They literally, Ohio State fans, I'm sorry to say this, as much as you guys hate Michigan, you literally did the same exact thing that Michigan just did this past offseason. You encouraged and enticed your top players that could have declared for the draft to come back. You bring back most of your offensive line, most of your defensive line, linebacker, core, secondary, and then you brought in a number of key big name transfer players, which is the step even further than what Michigan did, because you went and got Caleb Downs, who is unbelievable, and you added Quinshon Judkins into an already really good running back room. Even if Will Howard, and this is all my qualm has been the whole offseason, is I just don't know how much more he elevates the quarterback room, but even if he is average, say he does not get into a rhythm and he's just really average next year, that team is so freaking good, it does not matter. 12-0. 12-0. I think that they beat Oregon once in the regular season, and then in the Big Ten championship game, Oregon could steal it back, but I'm still going to keep picking Ohio State in that matchup because of everything that they have front to back. Quickly to get to Oregon.
Oh, go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
Isn't that game on the road for Ohio State?
It is on the road for Ohio State. I'm still picking them, man. I really like Oregon. I think that Oregon has an unbelievable receiving duo of Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart. I think that their run game, their offensive line is very underrated. But I just don't think that there is just a very slight separation gap in terms of the depth and the high-level talent that Oregon has, or Ohio State has, at every single position.
I think for me, because Ryan Day has been in these battles before even though he lost the national title game, he was still there. He's a field goal away from being what would be the national champion 2 years ago. Dan has not been in these fires like that. And when we've seen Dan, okay, I live by one rule. I think coaches like Dan Lanning can be exceptional, but Joe, I need to see him win a big game. And because he's such a new coach and he's not really done that, I need to see that happen. I think they're talented. I love Dylan Gabriel. But when I look at Ohio State, Joe, I do agree with Urban Meyer in this sense. They, talent v. talent, might have the best overall roster in the country, right? And so if that is the case, I don't think Ryan Day is as bad of a coach as people want to make him out to be. I actually think he's a really freaking good coach. He's won a lot of freaking football games. But see, here's another thing too.
Yeah.
His mentors with him. And I do think that gives him a sense of comfort. I do think having Chip there will give him something that maybe he was lacking in. Because, Joe, when we look at young coaches, which Ryan Day was, who was that old guy on the sidelines that, Ryan, they was right there looking at. He didn't have that. Now he does. And I do question if there's just not an overall better staff at Ohio State. I mean, brother, Brian Hartline is still there. I mean, so what the play calling? It's not his fault. He got Kyle McCord in his lap as a first-time play caller. So I just look at it all and say talent v. talent, staff versus staff, schedule kind of versus schedule to some extent. I got to pick Ohio State here, man. They're my Big Ten champion. In reference to Oregon, Joe, I don't – how do I want to say this? I feel like they were Georgia on the come up.
Yeah, it took them a bit to. I made this reference like a couple weeks ago. I said it took Kirby a bit. No, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't.
Okay, they're like Georgia on the come up to a lot of extents. For that reason alone, I just don't, like you said, I don't think Oregon is as talented at every single position group when it matters. And when you're looking at thin margins, I think that that's what matters.
The other one thing that you made a really good point on.
Oh, thank you.
Don't make me change me giving you a compliment. You made the strong point on Dan Lanning still hasn't accomplished winning a big important game when he needs to. And I'm not downing that he can't do it. He's not
Me
Mario
either.
Cristobal.
Me either.
I think he eventually will get there. But what you indirectly compared him and Ryan Day, and look at how long it's taken, how many reps of failure it's taken Ryan Day to get to this point where it feels like he's finally ready and he's finally hitting this stride. When you're a great coach like Dan Lanning is being projected to be, you need to go through enough adversity and to know how to handle that adversity. You're not going to just win easily. And you brought up the comparison to Kirby.
For example, when you're playing Washington on the road and you should have kicked multiple field goals instead of going for it on fourth down. I know that he talks about being aggressive. Joe, he's got to overcome what he did a year ago, right? And twice. So in multiple crucial situations, he got out-coached against a guy that's been in this game longer than him, Kalen DeBoer. I just throw it out there and say, I think Ohio State's ready to be that team. Can they win it? I don't know. Do I think that they are a team that has enough talent to get there at the end? Yeah, I do. And, Joe, I'm going to have them in my national title game. I'll go ahead and say it. It doesn't bother me.
Ohio State in there, you're saying?
Yeah, Ohio State in my national title game. That being said, I got to pick them to win here. Here's another hot take. I think they are going to beat Oregon twice.
Yeah, I think that Oregon, good enough to run the table to go 11-1. Dan Lanning has been through enough to make those improvements and those steps forward. But what we're saying here, and to kind of wrap up what my point was that because Ryan Day was Dan Lanning, or is now Dan Lanning is where Ryan Day was 3-4 years ago.
Or it could be Kirby Smart.
But, well, what I'm trying to get at is that Ryan Day is ahead of him in this process of needing to fail enough times before you succeed. Having been through adversity. I think perfect example for Ohio State here. Boston Celtics. Look how long it took them to get to this point for them to win an NBA championship. I know basketball, football is not a one-to-one parallel, but it took them enough times of falling short before they got to the spot where they were ready to win it. And that's the case for Ohio State. Oregon's just a little bit too soon.
We got a minute. You want to talk about C.J. Baxter?
Yeah, it sucks that he's hurt. Do we actually have a minute?
Yeah, we got a minute.
I mean, it's brutal that they lost him. I know that Jaden Blue, there's high expectations for what he can bring to that running back room, and they're pretty deep at that position. But I'm just pissed because, I wanted to see how he was going to do. I watched his high school tape when he was coming into the team, and the spark plug plays that he threw into that Texas offense was exciting as hell. I don't think it hurts him. It's just disappointing because he's a fun player.
I agree. Here's another thing. We talked about Michigan earlier, right? If Texas can't effectively run the football against that defense in Michigan on the road, that's a problem. That is a big problem, buddy. So we'll see. Can Texas go up to Ann Arbor, and win now with a big injury? We'll see y'all again on Sunday. SEC, I'm assuming?
SEC on Sunday.
Shit's going to get weird. We'll see y'all on Sunday. Y'all have a good one. Peace.